Good morning guys and welcome back to the channel. As some of you may know, in a few days I'm off to Wabakimi in Ontario, Canada, where we've got 10 days in the bush. So I'm here today and I'm going to be testing out a couple of different stoves to decide which one to take. One of those stoves that I've got is the Firemaple Petrel, which I know has been pretty difficult to get hold of on Amazon. It's been sold out for quite a long time. It's unusual because it's compact and it has a heat exchanger. So that's the one I want to make sure I've done a full test of. I'm going to be measuring how much gas they use and how quickly these stoves bring the 100 ml of water up to the boil. I'll be testing the Firemaple Petrel, BRS Stove and the Alpkit Brukit. So these are the three stoves that we'll be testing. On the left we've got the Alpkit Brukit. It's a very bulky stove but does have a completely enclosed burner and heat exchanger. Next we have the Firemaple Petrel, which is a much smaller stove, as you can see, a much smaller pot that it comes with. This has also got a heat exchanger. And then lastly we've got a standard BRS stove with no heat exchanger and a standard titanium pot. Let's start off looking at the Firemaple Petrel. It comes with this stove, which the actual rings slide down. I pull these out to make it a bit more stable, like that. It comes with a fire steel that's actually quite effective, standard titanium spork, titanium 500mm pot, and it comes in a storage bag. This is the first stove that we'll be testing. First of all, I'm checking how much fuel I've got in the tank. This is 298 grams, and then we can measure afterwards to see how much fuel was used. I've measured exactly 100 ml into one of these small shot glasses. So let's go. 100 ml of water in the pan. Start the stove. Start the timer. As you can see, the pan has got a built-in heat exchanger down here. Pretty effective, and the actual pot stands go directly into the pots, and it looks like this water is all. So that took around 20 seconds to boil, which was a lot less than I was expecting. So I'm going to up the amount of water I'm using to 30 ml, which is going to give me a much more realistic estimate of the amount of gas that I'm going to use for each one of these boils. And we're off again for test 2. So the water's boiled. It took about 1 minute and 15 seconds, but there's a problem. And the problem is this cap, when the water was boiling, was literally jammed on. You couldn't get it off. It was quite difficult to remove. Now it's cooled for a little bit. It's come off nicely. I'm not sure if that's something that just happens once. I'm going to check it again. The gas used from that boil was just 10 grams. So this is where we're up to at the moment. The Firemaple stove with the Firemaple pan took 1 minute 10 seconds to boil 300 ml of water and use 10 grams of fuel. Next we've got the Alpkit Brukit. This does have a built-in piezoelectric igniter, but I find these don't work very effectively when you've got the pot on, so I'm just going to get going straight away with the lighter. We're about 50 seconds in and I can see the water is starting to think about boiling. I think this is going to be very simple, similar to the Firemaple. We're at 1 minute 30 seconds and still the water's not boiling. We're at 1 minute 45 and I'd say we're now fully boiling. So, interesting results. The Alpkit Brukit took much longer to boil, 1 minute 45 seconds, but used significantly less gas. So only 4, maybe 5 grams of gas we used. Last but not least, we've got my trusty BRS stove. Absolutely tiny, perfect for backpacking, 0 weight. I'm just going to get this set up and attached to the gas canister, and then we can do another test with 300 ml of water. This has no heat exchanger. And we're off. You can probably hear this is much louder again than the Brukit. It is a similar volume in terms of gas throughput that we saw on the Firemaple. We're 1 minute in and I can see bubbles are starting to form at the base, so I think we're quite close to boiling. 1 minute 30, we're still not quite there. 2 minutes and we're boiling. So the results are in. With the BRS stove and a no-name titanium pot, we got a 2-minute boil time and 8 grams of fuel used. The amount of fuel used by the Firemaple Petrel is very high, so I'm just going to rerun that test and see if I get a similar outcome. So we're off again with the Firemaple Petrel. Let's have another go, see if that looks similar. Again, the gas throughput seems extremely high. We're at 55 seconds and it's starting to look ready to boil, but not quite there yet. 1 minute now. So again, we're at 1 minute, 10 seconds and the water's boiling, but as you can see, I cannot remove the lid, at least not with one hand. So second time around for the Firemaple Petrel, 1 minute 10 seconds boil time and only 6 grams of fuel used, which is more in line with what I was expecting. So where do I stand in conclusion? In terms of the amount of gas that was used, the Alpkit Brukit is clearly the winner. It used the smallest amount of gas. This is a 500 gram unit and it uses up a lot of space in the pack. Whereas the Firemaple Petrel used up 6 grams of gas, so only slightly a little bit more, and weighs less than half the weight of the Alpkit Brukit. But there are problems. It's got that annoying label, which is getting cut off within minutes of this video finishing. And then it's got the problem with the lid. Now, maybe that problem with the lid was compounded by the fact that I'm filming, so I've got one other hand in use, so it's hard to lift it off. With 2 hands, maybe it's not such a big issue. Maybe it's just something you get used to. Overall, I think I'm going to take the Firemaple Petrel. I quite like the design of it, but it's definitely going to require maybe a little bit more gas than if I took the Alpkit Brukit. So I just reran the test and I have to say I'm surprised with the variation that I've got. So this is the 3rd time I've run the Firemaple with the stove and the pan. To 1 minute 20 seconds, maybe there's a few millimeters more of water in there, I'm not sure. And this time I only used 3 grams of gas compared to 10 grams the first time I did it. I don't know where to go with that. It's definitely a good stove. The lid has some small issues, but it's very variable. It's worth just saying, every time I used the water, I did take it direct from the tap. I didn't start off filling something up with water and then that water was heating up, because it's quite warm here in the UK at the moment. I'm definitely not saying it was that, so I can't explain the variation. One final test and let's see what we get to. So I've just rerun the test again and I got very similar results to last time. 3 grams of gas, 1 minute 20 seconds. I also realized that the second time that I ran the test, the heat exchanger was still warm. So this time I spent a bit of time cooling it down under the tap to make sure that there was no residual heat that maybe adjusted the timings. Now I've got 2 tests, both seem to be pretty reliable, both seem to give me 3 grams of gas used and a very, very fast boil time. I'm definitely going to be taking that Firemaple. It's the fastest boiling of all of the different pots that I've got, and it seems to use the less gas, and it's the lightest. So happy days. Firemaple Petrel is the one that we're going to take.